Good afternoon. Welcome to the Frugal Connection. My name is Terry. I want to invite you along with me today as I make one of our family favorites, which is homemade sauerkraut. This is so easy, and all you need is cabbage, kosher salt, and some patience. And it'll ferment and you'll have beautiful, gorgeous sauerkraut. All right, I bought 2 heads of cabbage from a local farmer's market, and it was on sale. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take, there's one little spot on here that I'm going to take the outer leaves off. And I'm just going to cut off this little spot right there. All right, I'm going to set that to the side. All right, and now I'm going to take the core off. I'm going to set it on the flat surface here, and I'm going to cut it right in half down the middle. Okay. All right, so I'm going to take the core out of this. Oops. All right, I'm going to cut it in half again. So I have a quarter of the cabbage right here. Now basically what you do is you are going to cut this into tiny little shreds, very thin slices, and you're going to put it into a bowl, and then you're going to use roughly 1 tablespoon of kosher salt that you sprinkle over the top per head. So it's 1 tablespoon of kosher salt per 1 head of cabbage. Sometimes I use a little bit more, but you kind of want to be fairly precise on your measuring of this, because otherwise it's not going to turn out right. All right, so I'm just going to start chopping at this. You can see I just have thin little slices here, and you can do it however you want. If you want your cabbage to be, like I don't mind, I prefer my sauerkraut to kind of have the thin little slices. Some people want it chopped really, really fine. You chop it however you want. But the idea here is you chop it thin. That's 1/4 of it. And generally what I'll do is once I get half the cabbage done, I will sprinkle a 1/2 tablespoon on that and kind of create layers. So a 1/2 of the cabbage is shredded, and then I'll do a 1/2 tablespoon of kosher salt, then add the other 1/2 tablespoon, and on until it covers however many heads of cabbage I have. And I'm just going to sprinkle this on top, and I'm just going to let it sit while I continue to do the other 1/2 of the cabbage. Okay, I put the other 1/2 of that head of cabbage in there, so now I'm going to put just a 1/2 tablespoon of salt over the top of that, and I'm going to grab my little mallet here. All right, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pound it a little bit. Again, I let the salt do a lot of the work so that I don't have to keep banging on this. And if you see any big pieces like this, like a leaf that didn't get chopped up, you can pull that out, because basically what you want is these fine little, let me show you, like these shredded little pieces like this. You can use your food processor if you would prefer. I just find the food processor with cabbage, with this, it makes such a huge mess. And not only that, it tends to chop it way too small. Like it turns it almost into coleslaw, and I don't want that. I want those larger pieces. I just want them thin. So I'm going to keep banging on this a little bit. I'm going to start cutting the next head of cabbage. Once I get 1/2 of it done, I'll add some more salt. And once that's all in there, I'm going to let it sit for just a little bit so that the moisture can come out. And I will show you what it looks like when I'm done with that. Okay, friends, you can see that it's moist. The moisture is starting to come out of the cabbage. And I basically used 2.5 to 3 tablespoons of salt, kosher salt, for 2 heads of cabbage. So I'm going to let it do its thing for a while. I'll come back up and I'll keep squeezing it. I have that wooden mallet there that I kind of hammer it a little bit. But I will meet you back here once it's totally done and ready to be transferred in the jars to tell you what the next step is. Okay, friends, I'm back. My cabbage is nice and moist. The water has come out. There's actually some brine in the bottom of the bowl. And what I did, it's about an hour later, hour and a half later, I just kept coming upstairs every so often. I went downstairs to do some computer work, but I came upstairs every so often and just kind of pound this down a little bit. It still has some ways to go, but what I'm going to do at this point is transfer it into my jars. As you can see, there's water coming off of this. It basically creates a brine, and you're going to let it ferment in its own brine. Now, I have a crock. You do not need to can sauerkraut. You can actually let it, as long as the cabbage sits below the water level, the brine level, and you have something weighing it down, you can store it in a cool, dry place, and you can use it just like that. You just go down and take however much you want out of it. And usually what works well for that type of thing is a root cellar or someplace in your basement that's cool and dry. Unfortunately, I tried that. It does not work here. The last time I tried to do it in the crock that I have, it ended up spoiling and molding. Okay, so I'm going to just fill up these jars, and once I get them full, I'm going to also take my mallet there and push it down and try to squeeze as much in as I can, and then I'm going to cover them with the brine. Yeah, there's liquid in the bottom of this bowl, and as you can see, it's coming off the cabbage. Now, this is not going to be ready for about 10 to 12 days because what's going to happen is it's going to continue to create a brine, and then what you do, because I want to can mine so I can have it for long-term storage, is then I'm going to put it in a hot water bath. You could either do a pressure cooker or a hot water bath. I prefer to do the hot water bath with the sauerkraut because I don't want to kill all the good bacteria that's in here. And if I pressure can it, it's going to get too hot and it's going to do that. So, okay, friends, this filled all these jars, but now I want to make sure the cabbage is covered. So what I'm going to do is I transferred the brine that was in the bottom of the bowl into this. If I end up not having enough, which I'm pretty sure I won't have enough to cover this, I'm going to have to make some more brine, which is basically you're going to just take your water, cold water, about a tablespoon of salt, dissolve it, and then just pour it over the rest of this and let it continue to ferment. All right, so I'm going to continue to fill these jars with some more brine. What I will do is I'm going to cover this with a tea towel. That's not going to fit in there. I'm going to cover it with a tea towel, cover the lids because I don't want anything bad in there, and I certainly don't want dust and stuff like that to go in my jars or other food particles. And then what I'll do is just leave it over to the side, leave it alone. Every day I'll just come over and just, make sure I'm pushing the cabbage so it stays under the brine so that it doesn't mold. We don't want mold on these. And after about 7 to 10 days, I'll know it's ready. And you can taste, you can take a little piece of cabbage out and taste it too. And if it's fermented, it'll have that nice sauerkraut taste. And then I can just add the lids to this and then put it in a hot water bath and can it. Okay, friends, this has been sitting on my counter for about 5 days now. As you can see, it's getting bubbly and it definitely has, so you can see the little bubbles there. So it's fermenting. It has a sour smell to it. It probably needs a couple more days. So. Hi friends, welcome back. I wanted to update you on the status of my sauerkraut. It still has a day or two to go. It's bubbly, but what I wanted to do is once those bubbles stop being totally active, then I'll know it's totally fermented. It has a wonderful sour smell. I did taste a piece of the cabbage. It's getting sour. It does need a little bit more time. I would say probably another 2 days. And then what I'm going to do at that point is I will wipe down the rims of my jars just to make sure they're totally clean. Make sure the brine level is all at the right level. You want about a 1/2 inch head space on these jars. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my lid on, put my ring on, and I'm going to put them in a water bath canner, bring it up to a boil since I'm starting these are cold. So I don't want to put cold jars in boiling hot water. So I'll just fill my water bath canner. I'll put the jars in, make sure that the water level is over the top of the jars. And then I will bring it to a boil. And once it starts boiling, I will process those jars for 25 minutes and then pull them out and let them sit overnight and just make sure my seals have all sealed. And there you have it. That's sauerkraut. It's really the most time-consuming part of it is just waiting for it to ferment. But other than that, it's super simple. Cabbage, kosher salt, that's it. Your jars. And that's all you need. I find the sauerkraut that I buy in the store is just too sour, and sometimes I think they add vinegar to it. With this, it's a nice mild taste. It's fermented, but it's just yummy. And again, you don't have to can your sauerkraut. You can keep it in a crock as long as you keep the cabbage under the brine so that it's not exposed to the air. It will last for months that way. It's just unfortunately in our house, the basement where I would keep it, it's too warm upstairs. And even in the basement, it's too warm because our furnace is down there and it just doesn't seem to get to the right temperature to keep it from molding. So I don't want it to mold. So this works well for me. I can it and it stays shelf stable for a year or more. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. You can hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends, and I hope you'll give this a try. Sauerkraut is great. We love it. My husband's Polish, so he loves it with kielbasa. I'll make a dish with kielbasa and sauerkraut and everything for him, which is what he likes. So anyway, I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next video.